So, imagine this. I'm sitting at my desk in the middle of a pretty typical Wednesday at the agency, right? The usual hum of keyboards, the occasional printing machine jam, that kind of chaotic comfort. I had just brewed the world's strongest coffee because, apparently, deadlines chase us like relentless zombies around here. And then, my phone buzzes. I glance down and see a text pop up from Claire. Now, Claire's my boss, the kind of person who's all sharp edges and no nonsense. She's the one who usually only sends emails with bullet points and deadlines, not texts, and definitely not personal ones. So yeah, I blinked when I saw her name lighting up my screen. I unlocked my phone, and there it was. A message that didn't say, "Project update," or, "Can you send those slides by noon?" No, this was different. Way different. It started with something like, "I'm so overwhelmed right now," and then it spilled into a whole monologue about how she felt completely stuck, maybe even hopeless, at least when it came to something outside of work. Honestly, part of me wanted to blink a couple more times. Maybe some migraine was playing tricks on me. Because, come on, Claire, overwhelmed? Confessing all that via text to me? It felt like I'd accidentally tuned into a soap opera rather than day-to-day office chatter. I froze. Like, really froze. Here I am thinking, should I reply? Do I pretend I never saw this? Maybe she sent that to the wrong person. Or maybe I've just entered some alternate reality where my boss has a breakdown over text at 9 a.m. I toyed with the phone for a solid minute, watching that message glow ominously. I mean, I'm no stranger to awkward moments, but this was uncharted territory. It felt weirdly personal, like I wasn't an employee anymore, but some sort of accidental therapist. And yet, if I ignored it, would I be brushing off a genuine cry for help? The whole situation was like stepping on a rattlesnake and knowing I can't easily back out. Before I could even decide what to do, another message popped up. Sorry, that probably sounded crazy. Just needed to get it off my chest. Now, that made it even harder not to respond. And if you think I hit reply with some calm, professional pep talk, well, I didn't. Because what followed next pretty much flipped my whole work life upside down in ways I never saw coming. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's just say, that accidental text was like opening a door I wasn't supposed to, and stepping into a room full of surprises, some of which still have me scratching my head. Claire, where do I even start? She's the kind of boss who walks into the office like she owns every inch of the place, clicks her heels purposefully, and expects perfection at a moment's notice. No one's ever accused her of being soft or flaky. If Claire had a theme song, it'd be something relentless and sharp, probably with a drum beat that snaps in time with her brisk footsteps. Honestly, I never saw her any other way than this fortress of professionalism. So yeah, this text coming from her was like seeing a rock star without their guitar, or worse. The office's most dependable coffee machine suddenly sputtering and refusing to brew. It felt impossible. The first day after that text, I found myself sneaking sideways glances at Claire during meetings. She still had that steely stare locked in, barking out targets and deadlines, but every now and then she'd blink a little slower or linger a bit longer over some meaningless email. I could tell something was behind those cool eyes, something she wasn't airing out in front of the team. And then there was Jen. Man, Jen is the kind of coworker who gets it without you having to spell things out. She's sharp, funny, and somehow manages to keep her desk tidy despite the chaos of our marketing madness. She's also my unofficial work bestie, though she makes fun of me relentlessly for taking everything too seriously. So when I caught Jen shooting me that, "What's going on with you?" Look, I didn't exactly spill the beans. But she pushed anyway, teasing, "Don't tell me Claire's finally melting under all that spreadsheet stress and you're the lucky one she's texting?" I didn't peg you as the emotional anchors type. I laughed it off, but inside, yeah, something was definitely weird. Claire seemed vulnerable, yet distant, and somehow I was the reluctant piece who tapped this secret connection. Then Mark showed up. Mark, the agency's new hire, arrived one Monday like a walking mystery, wrapped in slightly too big sneakers and a smile that didn't quite meet his eyes. First day, he wandered around like he was trying to find a meeting that didn't exist, knocking over a cup of pens at the reception desk and apologizing so profusely that it felt less like regret and more like some practice routine. Everyone noticed him, the chatter, the sideways glances, that mix of curiosity and caution. He didn't say much in the team briefing, but when he did, it was always something odd or unexpectedly insightful. Think less normal new employees and more someone who just doesn't fully belong here but is trying anyways. Meanwhile, deadlines at the agency were already breathing down our necks like that last customer elbowing their way in line at your favorite coffee shop. Big campaign, big clients, huge stakes, and Claire? Well, she kept grinding, even if her texts to me said otherwise. That accidental text, which I kept rereading during boring conference calls, started to feel less like a glitch and more like a door knocking on my brain. By midweek, Claire caught me near the coffee machine and, to my surprise, asked how I was holding up. It was the kind of interaction where I almost tripped over my own words. I mean, Claire initiating small talk? What's next, Monday donuts? She smiled, but it was the kind of smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, like she was handing me a fragile secret between two normal sentences. I wasn't sure if I was stepping onto solid ground or quicksand. Jen noticed my distracted vibe and nudged me during lunch with a smirk. You know, being Claire's secret text buddy doesn't come with a manual. If she asks you to be her sounding board, maybe brace yourself. This isn't your usual reply-all situation. Honestly, I didn't fully get what she meant yet, but I knew there was something under the surface. Something Claire wasn't telling anyone else, and definitely not letting out in meetings where she stayed the boss everyone expected her to be. As for Mark, he seemed to orbit the team like an unpredictable comet. One minute he was buried in spreadsheets and brainstorming ideas with that odd enthusiasm, and the next, he'd duck out early or disappear mysteriously between client calls. Rumors started swirling quietly, not yet loud, but enough to make you raise an eyebrow. So here I was, juggling an odd emotional thread with Claire that felt both strange and compelling, dodging Jen's half-serious warnings, all while trying to figure out what on earth Mark was up to. And with the big campaign deadline charging toward us like a freight train, the whole office kettle was starting to whistle louder than ever. I realized maybe that accidental text wasn't just a slip-up, it was the opening move in something far bigger than an awkward message. And somehow, I was right in the middle of it. So, things started to twist in ways I didn't expect once Claire began confiding in me more openly. I mean, here was the woman who used to be a fortress of professionalism, suddenly dropping bits of her personal storm between deadline reminders and budget talks. At first, it was awkward, super awkward. Like when you accidentally use the wrong fork at dinner and then spend the whole meal wondering if anyone noticed. One afternoon, I was buried under a mountain of campaign proposals when Claire came up beside me with that same smile that never quite reached her eyes. She leaned in and said, "Can I share something with you?" There was a weird weight to it. Normally, a boss asking you to share something would mean you're about to get reprimanded for last quarter's sales figures, right? Instead, she sighed and just started talking about how she felt trapped by expectations, the pressure to keep everything running smoothly, and how she was terrified the next big thing might make her crumble. She said, "It's like I'm keeping a bunch of plates spinning and I'm scared one of them's gonna drop and shatter." Now, I'm not exactly a therapist, but hearing Claire, the Iron Claire of the office, say that, it flipped my brain a little. I wanted to say something smart, maybe "you got this," or "I'm here if you need to vent," but instead I just nodded like a bobblehead on a dashboard. That was the start of our weird new dynamic me. The guy who was supposed to just crunch numbers and send emails, suddenly becoming this accidental emotional anchor. It felt like being thrown into the deep end without a life jacket. Jen caught me mumbling some nonsense about plates to myself during lunch, and she raised a skeptical eyebrow. "Dude, you're way too invested. Claire's a boss, not your therapist. Just don't get pulled into the drama unless you're ready for a full-on soap opera." I rolled my eyes, but part of me wondered if Jen was onto something. Because just around then, Mark's strange behavior was picking up too, and not in a way that made me want to invite him to dinner. Remember how I said Mark was kind of odd? Well, that odd was turning into something more unsettling. One day, I noticed him sneaking around near the locked supply closet, like he was looking for something he shouldn't have. Next, I overheard whispers from a few coworkers that Mark was asking questions about Claire's schedule, like way too detailed questions. Like someone mapping out a chess opponent's every move. I wasn't sure if I was imagining things, but the way Mark's eyes darted whenever he caught me staring made my skin crawl a bit. And then came the rumors. Quiet at first. Just little murmurs around the coffee machine, stuff like, "I heard Mark's not just here for the job, and what if he's spying on us for a competitor?" It got to the point where I felt like I was balancing three flaming torches: Claire's fragile trust, Jen's cautious warnings, and this weird Mark mystery all at once. I was juggling all of this while still trying to keep my own head clear for the campaign work, although my brain wasn't exactly cooperating. But then, Claire dropped the biggest curveball yet. One rainy Friday afternoon, right after a grueling status meeting where everyone looked like they'd rather be anywhere else, she pulled me aside by the window. The city was gray and wet, and the office felt like a pressure cooker about to blow. She whispered, almost like she was afraid someone might hear, "I need a favor." "Something that could put your job on the line." I blinked. What kind of favor?" She hesitated, biting her lip. "I can't say much here, but it's about the campaign. Something off the books but urgent. I trust you." Everything in me screamed run away, but also, I couldn't just say no. Not after everything that had shifted between us. I asked, "What exactly do you need me to do?" Claire glanced around, then leaned in closer. "I need you to get some information from Mark, quietly." She barely above a whisper, but the implication hit me like a ton of bricks. That's when I realized how tangled I'd become. Was I some kind of secret agent now? Or just a guy hopelessly caught in office drama way over his pay grade? I stood there staring out the rain-streaked window, trying to figure out whether helping Claire was worth risking my own job and maybe even my sanity. So, I took the favor. Not exactly with a full heart, more like a reluctant nod from a guy who's figured two options and neither looks great. Claire handed me little pieces, fragments of hunches about Mark's background, some inconsistencies in his resume, and whispers that maybe, just maybe, Mark wasn't the innocent newbie after all. She was convinced Mark was undermining the campaign from the inside. And with all the company's future riding on this project, Claire was desperate. My first step was to act casual, really casual, as if I were just the diligent coworker who happens to notice other coworkers doing their jobs. Which, honestly, was a stretch. I started shadowing Mark just enough to notice the weirdest things. Like how he'd disappear mid-afternoon only to reappear with this faint smirk, like he'd just pulled one over on someone. Or how he'd sometimes spend ages on his phone in the break room, eyes darting around like he was in some spy movie. One day, I caught him slipping a flash drive into his pocket as he left the conference room. That's when the pieces clicked. This wasn't just a weirdo new hire. Mark was playing for keeps and probably not on our team. I figured if Claire trusted me with this, I'd better get to the bottom of it. So, I did what any budget version office detective would do. I checked Mark's LinkedIn, cross-referenced his previous jobs, and stumbled on a few inconsistencies. And then I found out he'd worked with a rival agency that our company had a falling out with last year. Coincidence? No gope. Armed with more than just suspicion, I finally shared everything with Claire. We didn't confront Mark outright, too risky, but we tightened security around sensitive campaign materials and kept a closer eye. What blew me away was Claire's next revelation. She confided that this campaign wasn't just any project, it was the make-or-break moment for the company. There were talks behind closed doors about a possible takeover by a much larger agency. Claire had been fighting tooth and nail to keep the independence alive. Mark's role, it turned out, was part of a corporate chess game. He wasn't hired as a regular marketer, he was a pawn sent to sabotage from within. And there I was, this accidental confidant, stuck in the middle of this high-stakes drama that felt more like a Netflix thriller than my usual code and keyboard routine. It made me look at Claire differently. The sharp-edged boss I thought I knew had been carrying this huge burden alone. Her vulnerability wasn't a sign of weakness, it was proof of how much she cared. Somehow, in this weird turn of events, I'd stepped into a role I never knew I wanted or was ready for. As for Mark, well, the company quietly let him go before the campaign went live. No drama, no big showdown, just a clean break. But for all the office whispers and my detective work, I never really knew if he was just ambitious, dangerous, or something in between. Standing at the edge of this chaos, I realize I'm still not quite sure if I'm some unsung hero or just some guy who answered a strange text and ended up knee-deep in workplace espionage. Either way, this whole mess changed how I see my job, my boss, and honestly, myself. And who knows? Maybe the next accidental text will unravel something even crazier. But for now, I'm just here, typing out emails, brewing that too strong coffee, and wondering if my phone will buzz with another secret any minute now.